Okay, hello, my name is 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝. Thank you for choosing this video, and today we're going to be doing part 2 of my mega retrospective review analysis of chapters 1000 to 1053 for One Piece, starting today with chapter 1011. Now this cover page, I think since pretty much chapter 900 or since Wano started or so, Oda's been, especially since chapter 1000, Oda's been going really crazy with the cover pages and how good they are, the cover spreads, but also just how blatantly obvious they are with a lot of these clues. In this one, Nami relates to a lot of stuff with the right eye of Ra and lots of things dealing with that. And this idea of soft serve to me, yes, okay, they're all eating ice cream, like all that stuff, but it makes me think of like a soft serve for baseball. And when like an underhand pitch that you can just easily hit a home run with, that's the kind of stuff I get the impression of in this cover page. From everyone eating ice cream, kind of like it's so easy to trick these people. It's like taking candy from a baby, taking ice cream from, a child, stuff like that. And I think it's very interesting, all the characters that are inside the drink, Nico, Robin, Jinbei, and Usopp. The characters that are outside, maybe in their own drink, with Chopper and Brook, the giant, Nami in the background, and then all the characters kind of on the bottom, maybe from the Earth realm. Just very interesting things in this, and it's difficult to think anything but pleasant thoughts while eating, is what the cover says. But to me, that can be really, like we talked about in my last video, the idea of, the sun crashing into the Earth could be kind of viewed as the sun eating the Earth. Is that a bad thing or a good thing? For us, it's terrible, but for the sun, what do they even think? Stuff like that. That's kind of the vibe I get from this cover. And then the chapter opens on Big Mom using a Hera lightning bolt attack, another Greek god name, which we talked about the last review, and I'm not quite sure how all these Greek names and other god names from cultures on our world have kind of transferred over to the One Piece world. But we cut back to Kid's gravity devil fruit, and it seems to open up here and fall apart to let out Prometheus. And I don't know why this happens. Now maybe it's because Kid, when he falls down the roof, he's far enough away that it no longer is within range for his power. But I really wonder why it comes apart here specifically. Then we get some cool shots of Luffy and fighting Kaido. And then we cut down to Kid on the ground, and maybe this is, like I said, why exactly his powers weren't working anymore on the roof. But then I think we see some very interesting stuff with Hawkins here, and I touch on it a little bit in some of my videos, this idea that Oda uses straw and flint to kind of signify fire and lightning sometimes. And I think this idea is really highlighted here with Hawkins' powers, being able to have his straw influence metal and stuff. I know his devil fruit abilities, his straw fruit abilities or whatever, seem to be very multifaceted. And the idea that it's connected in the sense that straw is one of the best fuel sources for fire, connected to all these things made with fire, is very interesting to me. Then we get some cool shots of Usopp and Tama on the Tanuki thing, and I think this chapter, I kind of thought it was a skippable chapter when I was reading it originally. At the time, all I was really caring about was I wanted to see the rooftop fight. But rereading, looking back on this, I think this chapter is very loaded with just exactly what we were talking about before with Tama's powers of influence and all that type of stuff. And talking about influence, one of the big things that I've talked with a lot of people about is this idea of the pineal gland being a symbol in many cultures, and this pine cone idea thing. And I think that Oda's kind of turned that on his head, at least so far in the One Piece world. We talked about in the last review video how the Nolan head chestnut things are all over the steps in Onigashima. Those represent the same thing as a pineal gland for all these old ancient cultures and their statues. Well, the idea of it looking like a pine cone is, I think, getting joked on here, that in the One Piece world right now, it's all a big trap. And that's why in the anime, those Nolan things are colored in purple, because I think that they're a sign that the royalty, the ruling class, has kind of taken over that symbol right now and is using it to fool and trap and be a ticking time bomb type deal for the pirate One Piece world. And then we get a direct shot of Tama's powers of influence, even when it's not with her devil fruit. She influences Big Mom to help her out, and we come back to the chapter title with Anko standards, and I guess Anko means red bean paste, which is it reminds me of the people, the special ninjas in Naruto. but it's used to make 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚎𝚘 soup, which was what Big Mom was drinking or was eating all the time when she had amnesia. But to me, the more important aspect of it is this idea that they're not just gaining powers and brewing special powers, maybe like Blackbeard is viewing. They're trying to get the right, seems like, willpower and souls, I think, into this Binks brew type thing that might be happening in Wano/Onigashima. And then the chapter ends with Big Mom taking out page 1, stating that the pirate world may be cruel, but there are still standards, you damn vermin. And I don't know if this is a big reference to the idea that she's against the bird people and the dinosaur and the ancient DNA, or if it's with all the pa stuff. I wonder if it's a big clue that somehow she took out some father type figure either in the past or coming up in the future of the story. But to me, this chapter just really highlighted the many different facets and avenues and ways that Tama can influence people to help her. And if we get really super technical about it, she influenced Ace, she influenced Luffy, she's influenced Yamato and Momo and all these people. She continues to influence just with her cuteness a lot of times, but perhaps there could be other things at play, especially considering maybe where she's from and what her origins are. Then chapter 1012 called Itch. I really like the cover page with talking like the last chapter with the bird people and maybe obviously with the Lunarians later on, but this idea that maybe the birds and magnetics and all these things might be related a little bit. Maybe it's getting touched on here. There's lots of stuff with the metal going into the wood fence and the wood trees and all sorts of cool things there. And then this chapter touches more on the Yamato and Momo and Shinobu interactions or whatever, and Yamato heads off on her own to help out Luffy, knowing that it's a one-on-one fight. We get another weird kind of sign that Shinobu's up to no good with this peeking at the Oden's log. And something that's always struck me as interesting with the logs is I've always kind of, one of my earliest thoughts about what the One Piece might be from Volume 1 is this idea that it was a log for someone, I didn't think a history book or anything like that, but like an adventure log for a pirate crew. And it's weird because the word gold backwards is just D-log. So this idea in the series that there's all these D's and that they might have this history and that there's gold's a treasure, well, I mean, it's literally in the word gold. But here we get Shinobu clearly peeking at Oden's logbook while Momo was reading it. Then we get some funny Sanji stuff, and I don't think it's a mistake that Brook's skull thing is kind of on the animal pirate person's jacket, while we get Zoro being very reminiscent of Mihawk's sword. Because that's kind of one of the more tinfoily crazy things I think might be happening, is that Mihawk is basically a body snatcher and that he wants to take over Zoro's body. And to me, it kind of explains why he would completely lose interest in Shanks once he lost an arm, because for him that would be pointless because he can't wield his sword with one hand. Kind of cutting back to the idea, I think, here with kind of these relations, and we see that Zoro believes in Luffy, in his newfound power. And then the chapter ends with a sweet Nami shot taking out not taking out Otama. She's helping Otama by taking out Alti. I think this is another huge sign that we get at the end of the arc too with Nami. But this idea that Tama influences even Nami to take action and to be brave and fight and all these things, I think is another huge clue to just how much her powers and role in the story might be to influence many characters to do things, and many actions even more than just character interactions. Then chapter 10,013, Anarchy and the BM, the Big Mom, just like the Sex Pistols song, the Anarchy in the UK. Big punk reference, obviously, and
it's been going on for too long. It's history. It's vile. It's not achieving anything. It's just digression. They play rock and roll at airports. That's about as advanced as it can possibly get, because the Sex Pistols was going to be the absolute end of rock and roll, which I thought it was. Unfortunately, the majority of the public, being the senile animals that they are, got that wrong. Too bad.
I really like this cover. Like I said, I think that Oda's kind of gotten crazy with the amount of blatant clues that he's given away, and the idea that something might be sleeping inside Zoro that Sanji ultimately wants to cook or use in some way, as material. I'm not saying Sanji in particular, but, you know, maybe something inside Sanji or someone who has control of Sanji or something connected in those ways. I really don't think that Sanji and Zoro are as separate as we think they are sometimes. And then this chapter continues on the fight with Alti and Nami and Big Mom. And Big Mom once again helps out the fight because of her feelings towards Tama. We even get, I mean, I watched my Bing Saki video, but I think there's a lot of stuff coming in the future of the series with fusions. And I think for One Piece, it's going to be utilized through the idea of devil fruits maybe combining, or people with devil fruits combining. But we get a pretty clear clue here with all the fusion and the her powers, all the different homies combined to be like, you know, one big attack, which we also saw in, you know, the Thriller Bark when they all combined to fight Oars. It wasn't a complete fusion, but it was this idea of a combined attacking, I guess, is what I guess you could view it as. And then we get some more stuff about Zeus and Tsunami and everything, and then we also get to see another big hint with like the Shinobu stuff, that a mother's love can be kind of overbearing and protective, and that can't not always a good thing. And here we see Big Mom, you know, taking Tama for her protection, but, you know, it's very scary and all sorts of stuff like that. And then the chapter ends with referring back to the title with the Anarchy in the UK stuff, is with Kid coming down, ambushing Big Mom with his punk Gibson. Now, I really wonder that punk word, punk has a lot of meanings, but one of the main ones is kind of to pimp, but this idea that Kid is so connected with the word punk, I just makes me think of other characters and how his devil fruit might be very important for scientists from the future or from the past, or someone that might be able to utilize his fruit or might be waiting for it to return. And I know that can kind of sound crazy at first, but to me the name is kind of even implied with the punk Gibson. Gibson is a type of guitar make. But the idea of being an instrument, being used as an instrument without even knowing it, I think could be in Kid's future. And then the chapter ends on one of the most hyped shots for me, with Luffy being dropped from Onigashima to the ocean. I think the language that Kaido uses here is big time clues, and this idea that they need to see their faith in Luffy is still surviving in this moment, I think is ultimately a huge reason that he's able to come back more powerful and all this stuff, is because of everyone's faith that he will bounce back. Just big clues that are for more endgame type stuff that I'll do in future videos. But I found it very interesting that Luffy sinks in this whole interaction we're about to see. I really wonder how much of that has to do with the direction that his head is. That going back to the last video with the hair and everything, how much he's getting pulled perhaps by his hair. But to be more specific, I find it very interesting how Luffy seems to go in the direction that his eyes are pointing and facing. As crazy as that sounds. And then chapter 1014, a lifelong ham actor.
It's not over between us, Luoxana. You're mine, and I will not let you go. I insist you return to my side immediately.
You mean you still care?
My love is a fever.
We have the extremely memorable opening where Kaido remarks that, oh, I guess you couldn't be the Joy Boy either, which has huge ramifications for what all this stuff should mean and who exactly is going for these things, based on the idea that at some point Kaido believed himself to be of the same quality of it. It seems like almost nothing on paper would be similar between something that maybe Luffy would be doing and something that Kaido would believe in at any point. It really makes me question the idea of what kind of goals could Joy Boy have that would coincide with what goals Kaido had. And I also really wonder, at what point did Kaido stop believing that he could be Joy Boy? I really almost wonder if it was something where he realized he wasn't strong enough at some point, and that meant something. Like he wasn't strong enough to accomplish some task, whatever that task was. But to me, the fact that even Kaido would want to do it probably means it wasn't some great idea or goal, you know, as far as the whole world is concerned, or the safety, you know, of the people. But that's just me. But I do really wonder exactly what Kaido might know about Joy Boy and Luffy and what powers he may have, and he seems to be questioning the Gum Gum fruit, and then immediately gives a command to make sure that everyone knows that he beat Luffy. To going back to the idea, I think, with that belief thing, and if maybe there is some sort of an idea, at least in Kaido's mind, that this Joy Boy figure is fluctuating and all this stuff. I'm not 100% sure what exactly his motivations are here, because I truly think that he still wants the fight to happen, but I'm not exactly sure how that correlates to his actions here, because he definitely seems extremely disappointed by that the fight is over. And it did seem like before, ultimately, that Kaido wanted to die and get into a fight with a strong opponent and all this stuff be tested, you know, almost like Kaido had the Goku mentality. He seems to take great precautions, though, to make sure the belief in Luffy is crushed, and then obviously later on still reap the rewards of Luffy attaining, you know, a higher power level to challenge him and test him and all this stuff. But just really gives me vibes on ReRead that maybe Kaido's fruit, or whatever is influencing Kaido's actions here, is actually kind of about to start doing everything that might power up Luffy and get him to the next level with belief and worship power and all these crazy things. And we get a great shot of everyone pretty much refusing to surrender. Going back to the fight with Odin, or the fake Odin with Kanjuro inside the place, and Kiku gets stabbed, and then Kanjuro is finally dealt with by Kinemon with, you know, probably his coolest spread that he's had. Pretty much killing his best friend, basically, it seems like. And then the chapter ends with, I really thought Kinemon was dead here the first time I read this chapter. I thought for sure he was squished here, but I think there's a lot more reasons to why he lives here than what we think, and I think it's directly related to the same things that happened to Pell. And I think that the idea that during this whole war and everything, Luffy maybe had someone who he believed in and would not let die, and then through that belief and faith, that person doesn't die. Almost like Luffy has marked them to be favored by fate or destiny or whatever, like he's marked them and shown them favor so that they are lucky. I do think is at play in a major way in the One Piece world, and I think in the Wano arc, Kinemon seemed to be that person who was imbued with that power by Luffy. Now we start chapter 10-15 off with, I said in the last chapter that I think there's a lot of stuff going on with the hair leading people, or blocking signals, or doing something. But for Luffy specifically, I think that that's at play, but I also think one of the main things that play for Luffy is that he does go in the directions that his eyeballs look. And that this whole time he's kind of floating, or not floating, but he's sinking, he's looking down, and then later on in the chapter when he's using his telepathy, he's kind of looking straight on almost, so it's like seems to me like he kind of stops going downwards. I do think that there is something to that idea that his eyes draw and pull him to what he is attracted to, or showing light to with his eyes, that type of relationship.
Is that you, Cunningham? Hey, you ain't mad, are you?
Chapter kind of continues on with the, obviously setting up kind of Sanji and Queen's fight for later on. We get a lot of stuff kind of paying off with those type matchups, and then we see some interesting shots with Marco kind of, saying that he likes these guys because they don't give up and all these things. And then we cut back to Kaido kind of, to me it seemed like he was pretty much for sure killed Kinemon here, but obviously he did not die. But we cut again to Shinobu saving Momonosuke, and they're talking about frogs, and there's all sorts of weird things with that. But the idea that Momo was entrusted with giving this message from Luffy, and that he will come back and he will do all these things, I think has happened on a meta level for the One Piece world, with some people believing saviors will come back. But in this instance, like I said in the last video, I think this is very obviously telepathy, and that this voice of all things is a voice that's not a voice. It's a thought, an idea, all that type stuff. And Momo's belief in Luffy, at least, him telling everybody all this stuff does get them all to cheer. And at this exact moment is when he's found by Law's submarine. And the idea, going back once again to this idea that Luffy is powered by laughs in some form, we've got confirmation for that supposedly, but belief in some way. I think is a huge, huge deal. And this idea that, oh, he's been beaten, but no matter what, he's going to come back and be saved. And then out of nowhere, you know, literally the only submarine, it seems like, in the whole One Piece world comes and saves him in the water. Just very, very, I'm not saying it's a plot hole or anything like that. I am saying that it's like a Deus Ex Machina type deal. But that the Deus Ex Machina equation, Luffy and belief, are part of it. And the chapter ends with Yamato arriving on the rooftop ready to fight Kaido. Now, chapter 10-16 opens on Otoku and them all at the Fire Festival, and they're talking about how the Fire Festival is a celebration that honors the dead. Otoku makes a wish of, I hope that Daddy can see it, and all this stuff. And considering she was found somewhere in Wano, perhaps bore from the island itself, I really wonder how dangerous this wish is and where exactly it's going to be coming true in the future. Because everything about this guy, who we find out later to be Sakayuki Kazuki, I don't know if it's the huge, long Pinocchio nose that's red. I don't know if it's the fact that he wears a mask and hides his face behind the mask. But just something about him I do not trust. Because I think this scene can really kind of go two big main ways. And that's one, that everything that's being said here is a lie, and that this watching over us intently is not true, and that it's actually from the ground underneath them watching up, and that it might be waiting for something. But I also think that it could be a coded reference that what she's born from, her father, is perhaps contained somewhere or somehow in this Onigashima skull. That it is highly at the end of the page with the eyes and everything, but kind of from a down angle. I really kind of wonder a lot about exactly where Otoku is from exactly. And then a little taste again of Otama's powers, and even just like I said, her powers of influence just with her voice. Obviously the ones that are under her kind of control things, but I think it's a lot more than that. With this idea that maybe she does have an influence of what her desires are, kind of transcend to most of Wano, it seems like. And this chapter ends with the big, Kaido chose this place because it's Wano, and we still don't know why exactly he's saying that, or what, maybe it's this Pluton stuff, maybe all these things, but it's definitely something with this creature, I think, that's here on the stage for Onigashima. This creature right here, I really wonder exactly how prominent that design will be in the future. Because to me, it is a very loaded design that could be many different things, and I'm not sure exactly what to make of it. And then, like I said, the chapter kind of ends with Yamato and Kaido finally facing off, and to me, I'm very hesitant to say anything when it comes to Yamato, because I really don't know 100% what to make of her, because she is such a different type character than what we usually get for the Straw Hats and for characters in One Piece in general. She's pretty much a Bible thumper when you really think about it. How much she believes in this book from a person who was put to death on a public execution, all these things. There's a lot of parallels to her really just kind of being a zealot of a sort with an Odin Christ. With the newest Road to Laugh Tale things about her being banished, I really, really wonder, going back to this whole idea of, I think this whole arc's been about belief and wishes and all these things. I really kind of am wondering, like with the Robin stuff, just how much she could be influenced by, information in a book, whether it's true or good or bad or whatever form that takes. It's very interesting to me that she is so susceptible to believing anything that she reads. Then chapter 10-17, called Orders, has a pretty interesting cover, if I do say so, with the Buggy looking like all of his parts may be different pieces of one giant puzzle, and then we even have a monkey with a spiral tail, looks like maybe completing that puzzle, whether they know it or not. There's lots of stuff with trees and flowers, and those connecting to Buggy's parts, and all sorts of things. And even with where Buggy is looking, his attention is on the monkey, and the monkey doesn't seem to really care too much about him. Very interesting cover here that I think, on a very meta level for the whole story, may be extremely important. And this chapter was kind of, when it was coming out, you know, not that it's ever filler to me, it's just, you know, there are some chapters that are more transition chapters, there are some chapters that are more action, there are more payoff, resolution, whatever type chapters. There's so many categories. This one, to me, you know, just seemed like kind of, it was just a setup one. But we do have lots of very interesting stuff, once again, with 𝙬𝚘𝚘 and this idea of belief. Because as soon as she's kind of giving off these orders and ideas to the people in Onigashima, that's when Luffy, you know, is resuscitated, okay? The moment that she tells everyone that he's coming back, he gets, you know, the CPR works with the water coming out of him. All that stuff. I think that that could be a very, you know, like I said, the last time 𝙬𝚘𝚘 said something, he got rescued by a submarine. This time she said something, he undrowned or whatever. You know, he's breathing again. I think that those are way more correlated, and it seems very obvious on reread how correlated they are. But reading them week to week, I did not, you know, totally catch that. And Sanji gets a cool moment being able to save the group from Queen, and pretty much him and Queen kind of start their fight now. And then I kind of think, touching back on this idea of belief, we get kind of hinted on this idea that the you know, blind belief in medicine, that this new rumble ball and all these things will help Zoro, and the side effect is making him into a baby for Chopper. But this super recovery drug type thing, I think, is a kind of another thing Oda might be hinting on with this idea of belief and everything. Like, there's all these beliefs in God and religion and myths and all these things, but there's also, you know, blind faith in science, and I'm not saying any of these are bad or any of them have any sort of connotations. I'm just commenting on how there's very similar actions and brain patterns almost, and rhetoric when it comes to these things, where it's both parties kind of believing what the party line is, no matter what it is I think being, you know, kind of touched on here with this idea that, you know, because Chopper says it's okay, and this drug, you know, Chopper gave the okay, this little animal reindeer thing said it's cool to take it, so I guess I'll take it. To me, it might be kind of highlighting this idea that blind trust and faith in anything is not probably a great route to take, or at the very least can lead to tons of you know, unintended consequences and lead to, you know, unintended dangers, stuff like that. I think is maybe being touched on a little bit in this chapter. And then the chapter ends on Jinbei and Who's Who kind of starting their fight, and we get the first little hints or whatever about the Nika fruit and the gum fruit and all this stuff, and Who's Who being a former CP9 member that was tasked with guarding this fruit, and he was told it was the gum fruit, and it was stolen. I think this story has a lot of holes in it, and a lot of things that don't totally quite make sense. But we're going to touch on that in the 1018 analysis. Now, 1018 opens on the animal pirates, beast pirates, whatever, starting to target Tama, and the group having to get her away. Reminds me a lot of Luffy at Impel Down and stuff. Then we cut to the CP0, and they're using the Go board, the Shogi board, whatever. I think it's a Go board, to talk about the battle and relate everything. And then they kind of make reference to how part of their job here was to take out Who's Who. They make a mention that any confidential information that he would have, well, what exactly is the confidential information that he has? Is it that he protected the gum fruit and that was stolen? Or is it this Nika story? What exactly is the information that he has that they're trying to eradicate? I say that because I really think this moment, there's lots of things in the story that I'm not saying are retcons whatsoever. They are moments that are implanted into the story at certain moments, but they are not retcons. They were always planned, but the way exactly they get into the story and are pretty much impregnate the story is very peculiar. And this one, to me, has all the signs of one of those moments. And we get that because this chapter out of nowhere, this Who's Who guy, who did seem like the most mysterious of the Tobiropo and all that stuff, he's given extreme prominence by the narrators of the chapter here, that he has information that we should think is special. So we're already primed for whatever Who's Who is going to reveal during this battle with Jinbei. And then we hear Who's Who kind of, go more into his grudge, and that his real grudge is against the red-haired Shanks. Now, it's always struck me as interesting that everyone seems to recognize Luffy's straw hat as being from Shanks. Yet, no one calls Shanks Straw Hat Shanks. Even in Chapter 1 when we meet Shanks, who at the time should have been probably wearing the straw hat for all of his life, they're not the Straw Hat Pirates at that moment, they're the Red Hair Pirates. I've always thought that was a weird thing, but I know it's a weird thing now. But this idea that you're correlating the Straw Hat to Shanks and all these things to something that Shanks is either doing or causing, yet the main thing that relates to him is the straw hat that nobody, I mean, I just think it's very weird that there's, you know, it's red-haired Shanks, even though he wore a straw hat all of his life until Chapter 1. Yet they were the red-hair pirates for the whole time. Just very interesting things to me. And I also really wonder, why exactly did they steal the gum-gum fruit? Now, one, if they knew it was this Nika fruit, then that means they lied to Luffy in Chapter 1 when they told him what it was. And I think that that's probably the most likely case. But if they didn't know that it was the Nika fruit, then why did they steal it? Why did they even go through all of this exorbitant trouble to take this devil fruit that the government wanted if they didn't even know what it was for? So many questions, I think more questions are brought up, you know, being asked here than our answers are given, obviously. And I think one of the core fundamentals of the storytelling style that Oda usually implements, or at least his versions of it, is it's always extremely important who is telling who what information, and when they're telling it, why they're telling it, all this stuff. And we get all this Nika reveal stuff and this idea of Nika. Everything we get about it is in this fight at first with Who's Who and Jinbei. Kind of like how we had never officially heard the name Joy Boy until, you know, Fishman Island and the arc that we meet Jinbei again. Kind of this pattern being set up that these Nika and Joy Boy and Sun Pirates and Sun, this aspect of trying to maybe capture the sun, or being a captured, like, vessel for the sun, keeps getting brought up, you know, with Jinbei and in arcs with Jinbei, and, you know, the guy seems to have, you know, the guy has a tattoo of a sun on his, you know, belly, almost like, you know, it's a reversal of the Kozuki clan emblem. So, totally just to me, a big sign that we keep getting these sun chaser myths around, you know, a species that is very tied and oriented to kind of the idea of chasing the sun in a lot of ways. The idea of Nika being the sun god fruit, and obviously brings to mind the, you know, weaponizing the sun and being a weapon of God and all these things like David and the spears and all of those type of things, really just kind of makes me think of, you know, that, but also the idea that a weapon, you know, would you say Poseidon wants to be a weapon? You know, Sherry Hoshi, does she want to have the power that she has? Perhaps we could really view these barrels of power as really, you know, kind of tied to fate, but in a way they really don't want to be. And to me, with all the Fishman karate stuff and everything with Jinbei and the Fishman, they utilize everything about water to be a weapon. Perhaps there's some reversal of that where everything from the sun is used as a weapon, and that was maybe what Nika started as, is maybe, I think, one avenue things could possibly play out as. I wonder how important that is, considering that Jinbei and Nika have the same exact eyebrows, and that, to me, Jinbei's, like, sideburns are the same type sideburn type mustache things on Roger's Jolly Roger, on Gold Roger's, you know, the Roger Pirates Jolly Roger. So very interesting to me, you know, like I said, who's getting what information here. We get our, you know, the ancient slaves believed in a legendary warrior that could eventually come and save them. They called him the sun god Nika, and it was said he would bring laughter to their lips and free them from their suffering. All that stuff or whatever. Now, I think that this image is a lot of crazy things that we're not really going to get super into here. I'll probably do future videos on it, but the first big thing that steps out on me is at his foot, that spear end thing. To me, is very, very similar once again to the Nolan head chestnut stuff, and the idea that instead of facing up and higher enlightenment and thinking, it's being turned down you know, to come at the ground. I think going to the idea that the sun's rays, you know, stretch and hit everything in the ground and kind of envelop everything in light could be getting played with here, but I think there's a lot more stuff going on here that you know, like I said, we'll touch on in the future reviews, you know, the future retrospectives once we get to the Nika stuff. And I really think this idea, you know, I have seen it, I think, said before, you know, maybe it's, I do actually think it is probably Dragon that planted this story with Who's Who when he was in Impel Down. But why exactly that moment happened, I think, crazily enough, is so that it's regurgitated to us right here. Really makes me think who's controlling the CP0 and what the plan was. To make sure Who's Who is eliminated, yes, but I really wonder if part of that eliminating Who's Who was to ensure that he passed along some sort of information in some way to Jinbei. Like they knew he was fighting Jinbei, all that stuff. I really wonder if they expected Jinbei to not only take him out, but also extract the information for the audience and for the crew eventually. And that is what happens in this chapter. You know, it ends with the Gargoyle Tile Fist and Jinbei using, you know, basically using a water technique to take out, you know, Who's Who. Okay, that's actually going to do it for this video. During the editing of this video, it seems like the new chapter is kind of coming out a week early almost, but also, more importantly, rereading chapter 318 for the editing of this video and the Nika reveal chapter. I think I might have cracked the whole case on what exactly is going on with that, using that chapter and the clues therein. So I'm going to make that video for next week. These are probably going to be put on, not the back burner, but kind of like a break week thing. For when there's a break week, I have like 4 more recorded and the rest of this one's still recorded. And I will get those out, you know, in break weeks or whatever. And then once we're up to chapter 1053, we'll figure out something else to do. So my name is 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚘𝚝. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have, please like, share, and subscribe, and please comment what you thought of the video, and if you noticed anything in the chapters, and if you know, noticed anything in that 318 edit that might have spoke to you about what the secrets of Nika are. But if not, stay tuned to the channel. It'll be coming out soon. And my name is 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚑𝚝. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.